All right, my name is Dwayne Wohlgemuth, and this is Leanne Robinson, my partner. And our baby in the front row is Emil. He was along with us on the Canol Trail a year ago in the summer as a fetus. So this photo is from the Arctic coast, hiking along an esker. That is a hike we did a year and a half ago, and it's shown by the blue line on the map. The other walk we did was from Norman Wells to the NWT Yukon border on the Canol Trail. So we started right in Norman Wells, called Mile 0, and walked to the border, which is Mile 222. So that's about 350 kilometers. The other one was about 480 kilometers. So this is a photo from the Canol Trail. It's near the Yukon border. We did it the last 3 weeks of August, so we had some nice, start to have some nice yellow colors in the leaves, and beautiful, gorgeous mountain scenery on the Canol Trail. It's mostly, the Canol Trail is an old pipeline route that was built by the US government, and along the pipeline route is a road. In a lot of places the road is washed out, so you're following creek beds. This is Dodo Canyon and Dodo Creek, so a lot of the trail at the very beginning, closer to Norman Wells, follows Dodo Creek. Very beautiful spot though. Other places the road is really overgrown by trees and willows, and you actually have to avoid the road. This is one of the places where the road is a bit higher elevation, and you can see it really clearly snaking along the side of the mountain, and it's actually really easy walking because it's high enough that the trees and willows haven't overgrown the trail. Now switching, this is the Arctic coast. Again, very different scenery. Here the land is really flat. You might actually think you're on the Canadian prairies viewing it from a distance, but a lot of features really dominated by permafrost and by glaciers in the past. This is an erratic that, is the only thing of any notable size you can see in the horizon. We did follow rivers for part of the way. This is on the Inman River. There was a few waterfalls and a beautiful canyon that we followed for a little ways, and tons of raptors. We could hear the constant screaming of peregrine falcons and other birds. So that was a few quick scenery pictures from those.
Tag. And so while preparing for some of these trips, these are 3 or 4 week hikes, and I was just starting to get to know Dwayne, and we were on this hike, and I asked him, what's the longest hike you've been on? And he said, well, about a weekend, and realized that both of us had only been on a weekend hike. So there's a lot of preparation, there was a lot of learning that went into this. And some of that learning we knew before, and some of it we learned on the way. So there's lots of hazards and dangers on some of the trails. This is a poor moose who didn't quite make it through the path. On the Canol Trail, there's actually telegraph lines all the way along, and that moose didn't quite make it. But some of the animals are using the debris in quite ingenious ways. And so this ground squirrel has one of the best shelters from grizzlies that he can get. So the grizzlies can't get in there. So it's quite neat. But we were always thinking and planning and trying to assess what some of the risks were going to be. We used some of the debris as well. This is an old bridge. So the Canol Trail was abandoned during the Second World War. So it's quite old, the infrastructure, and it was totally just abandoned. So this bridge, looking at it right now, I'm not sure that I should have walked across this bridge, but it seemed like a really good idea at the time. So it was just sort of constantly assessing those things. Grizzlies were a big threat. On the Arctic Coast Trail, we didn't actually run into any grizzlies. They were obviously there, but we didn't see any. But on the Canol Trail, we did run into 4 on the way. One was a sow with her 2 cubs, so that's always, you want to have already discussed what you're going to do in that situation. One of the biggest risks and challenges on the Canol Trail is actually river crossings. And so what we did for river crossings, basically if the water was up to our crotch or lower, then we would walk across with our hiking poles. If it was any higher than that, then we used a boat to go across. And so we took an inflatable boat on both of our trips, and we carried it in our backpack the whole time, and inflated it when we needed to use it. And so river crossings were always a very big part of the trails. On a 3 or 4 week trip, food is a huge consideration. We did a lot of dehydrating beforehand, but we also did a lot of research into where we might be able to get some local food. And so the local food increases our calories, and then also decreases the risk that we're going to run out of food. So we did quite a lot of research trying to figure out where that would be. And shelter on the Canol Trail was. Some people choose to use these as shelter, snowmobiles in the winter, but we chose not to. We used a tent. So, yeah, researching into what you're going to use on the way. Navigation, this was a huge learning curve for me, especially on the Arctic coast. I didn't know what I didn't know. And this was a really good example. So on the Arctic coast, there's very little features, and trying to walk 3 kilometers in a straight line going 13 degrees west of north was actually more of a challenge than I thought. And so learning about maps and compass reading. And in a blizzard, it's even more of a challenge. This is Dwayne in his raincoat in the first blizzard of the year. This is August 23rd. So we knew this was a threat, and so just trying to mitigate some of those risks, and always thinking about what you will do in that eventuality. So we live in a really nice age right now of communication, so thinking about that as well. And so we have massive first aid kits, but always knowing that there is potentially something that may be able to help you out, and yeah.
And just as a quick summary, why we walk. Life is simple on the trail. You're happy with a backpack, and that message continues in your life afterwards. Also, we have a lot of time to dream and meditate, and most of our life decisions are made on the trail. And so we'll continue walking.